I guess it's a couple days ago now, we reported that the $1.9 trillion stimulus package got up to the Senate, and last night it was voted on, and it's going to happen at a clip of 50 Democrats to 49 Republicans. Senator Sullivan from Alaska couldn't be asked to stick around because the deliberations took 12 hours, over 12 hours to complete, all because Joe Manchin had a couple of hang-ups, and good for him, good for him. I would say this normally is going to signify, something good, perhaps some bipartisan efforts going forward into the future. But at the same time, the people that at least the Epoch Times chose to quote that spoke up in defense of Joe Manchin from the Republican side, I'm not the biggest fan of any of them. I'm sure you guys aren't as well. But instead of speculation, let's get into this. Senate holds the longest vote in history. The entirety of the history of the Senate, not just convenient history. Amid relief package negotiations, yes, there was a whole bunch of pork because that 800-page bill, I can't remember, it's either 600 or 800 pages. It's a lot, okay, for $1,500 or $1,400 checks to a very small portion of society. That's the main purpose of this bill, but whatever, you gotta stick in your special interest earmarks, I understand. Senate on Friday held the longest vote in modern history, clocking nearly 12 hours. The vote was on an amendment that President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID relief package. Senators initially voted on a minimum wage amendment at 11:03 a.m., with every lawmaker voting in about an hour. But the vote wasn't closed because Democrat leaders were trying to negotiate with Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia over a proposed amendment to unemployment aid. Manchin's name keeps coming up because he is seen to be much more of a moderate, but at the same time, he's shot down ideas of switching over to Republicans because he mostly, whenever there is something that is constitutionally questionable, especially when it comes to the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, he is a lot more likely to side with the Constitution, which is no longer a core principle of the Democratic Party. So it's been speculated for a while, but he himself has shot that down, that he would ever consider flipping parties, and because West Virginia is a Republican hotbed, it leaves him in a place where he's always going to be on the razor's edge whenever he goes for re-election. I think they're trying to wear down Joe Manchin, who is intent on making sure we don't spend more than we have to. Mitt Romney. Or I feel bad for Joe Manchin. John Thune. See what I'm saying? Two guys that we have called out repeatedly for being chief rhinos. Thune kind of flies under the radar because he doesn't vote. His spineless proclivities like Romney, Collins, Murkowski, the list goes on and on. But he's McConnell's second in charge, and he acts quite like a thief in the night. He was also the target of one of Trump's early ideas of primarying out certain rhinos and getting Kristi Noem to run for his Senate seat, and he's either up in 2024 or 2022. But it's a long shot. It's a big ask. But yeah, here's some dissent from within the Democratic Party. He tried to find a path that both sides might be able to work forward on. Senator Ron Wyden from Oregon, who authored an amendment on unemployment assistance that moderates that moderates have said $300 a week. And that's what they ended up deciding on instead of $400 per week through the end of August. And this new amendment that they ended up negotiating on allows for $300 a week additional on top for the unemployment benefit through the end of September. So it's less money over a longer period of time, which is fine because you should stop subsidizing this shit and just open everything up. How about that? How about that? But I'm not in charge. You're not in charge. Good Republicans aren't in charge, and they haven't been since Lincoln got his hat removed. So them be the breaks, and you got to play the hand that you've been dealt. Oh, Joe Manchin chimes in with a prescient point. Good negotiations. Should be good. Was that a Sesame Street platitude? Good things should be good. Thanks, Joe. Thune said about 90 minutes later that the record for the longest vote in history of the Senate was broken. How adorable. They made history today, guys. Let's all stand and clap. We'll get to the Democrats. It's just making me want to vomit in a minute after we get through why everybody was there. Manchin agreed to unemployment provisions after speaking with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden. I don't think Joe Biden was up that late, so it was probably Kamala or one of his other surrogates. Wyden said he spoke with Manchin in long conversations throughout the day, just trying to wear him down. I don't know where Wyden ranks on or rather in the Democratic Senate hierarchy, but being in such a safe district, I would have to believe that he has some sort of influence. About an hour later, Manchin joined Republicans in approving a unemployment aid amendment. But he joined fellow Democrats in approving the final Wyden amendment at 1:04 a.m. The vote was 50-49 because, yes, the non-blockheaded senator from Alaska had to leave because he had a family funeral that he needed to attend and didn't anticipate a 12-hour-long marathon to just vote on how deep the money pit need be go. Like I stated before, but for posterity's sake, the agreement extends $300 a week in supplemental aid through September 6th. It also makes $10,200 of aid non-taxable if the household receiving it doesn't make more than $150,000 per year, which in probably a majority of states is a not insignificant amount of money. But in places like New York, California, most of New England, probably Seattle, where Amazon's headquartered, that is very little, okay? $150,000 in my neck of the woods, even in Canadian funny money, that just means two people are working full-time jobs. I'll be frank with you, that's pretty much what the going rate is. So if you cross, or if you should have crossed that magical number, well, guess what? No relief for you. The House version of the bill included $400 a week in supplemental aid through the end of August. So they extended it a week and took an additional $100 off there. So there you go. Keep that in your back pocket as something that you're going to have to remember when the primaries come around. If you're one of those people that were looking for government handouts, yeah, the Democrats sold you down the river. Sucks to suck. The White House said the relief package remains incredibly progressive, even after compromises. So progressive, in fact, that they tried to fund Planned Parenthood, but Rand Paul had that removed. Could Breitbart have picked a more wide-eyed, crazy-looking picture of Rand Paul? Like, he's not a very excitable guy on normal days, but that makes him look exceptionally insane. Like he's a member of the squad. Paul claimed a win Friday after forcing Democrats to remove from their COVID liberal wish list bill a provision that would have allowed every Planned Parenthood facility in the country to receive free taxpayer funds through the Paycheck Protection Program. Democrats knew this was never about COVID relief or helping small businesses, said Dr. Paul, an ophthalmologist. I thought he was a different type of doctor. I didn't know he was an eye doctor. Interesting. That's the one that does actual surgeries, doesn't do the big goofy eye test with the chart at the end of the room, but whatever. It was a shameful attempt to fund their radical agenda on taxpayers' backs, and I was successful in preventing that from happening by stopping these funds from going to abortion mills. Colorful language, accurate language, and I'm glad that happened. In a press statement, Paul's office explained the House version of the massive $1.9 trillion liberal wish list. Individuals' Planned Parenthood facilities would have been treated as separate entities and, as such, eligible for federal PPP aid. How could you justify that? Okay, they are federally funded, so what? Original congressional intent of PPP was to limit large and well-financed groups, such as Planned Parenthood, from receiving a loan and instead provide relief to small businesses affected by COVID-19. Democrats had planned to waive affiliation rules for nonprofits to provide paycheck protection loans to Planned Parenthood in a House version of the COVID-19 relief package. The Paul team strenuously argued to the Senate parliamentarian that the waiver would only benefit Planned Parenthood and thus violated the so-called Byrd Rule. Before the parliamentarian was able to rule, the argument presented, the Democrats filed an updated version of the bill that did not include the offending provision, a concession that avoided setting a precedent. This is why I generally like Rand Paul, mostly because he's not afraid to speak his mind. He's not afraid to stand up for what he believes in, just like his old man. And he does his homework by reading these long, convoluted bills to make sure that shit doesn't have to stand trial, that your regular run-of-the-mill senator would much rather pass through all stupidly, collect their paycheck, vote along party lines, and never have to think about anything. Jacqueline Ayers, Vice President of Government Relations and Public Policy at Planned Parenthood Federation of America, denied the provision in the current bill was related to Planned Parenthood 501c3 organizations. The local Planned Parenthood's affiliates that previously obtained loans made available by the CARES Act are eligible under the affiliated rules defined by the Small Business Administration. Well, guess what, bitch? Looks like you'll have to get your new Hoovers financed somewhere else because you ain't getting those fucking subsidies thanks to Rand Paul's good work and understanding of legal rhetoric Looks like you were another one of those people who were duped into thinking that you'd be getting $2,000 checks if you just voted blue no matter who. And this is also important to point out, and I won't whenever we're talking these huge, ridiculous bills that are just stuffed to the gills with nothing that has to do with actual relief. Washington Times, Tom McCluskey, president for March for Life Action, emphasized only 9% of the COVID's bill funding is actually slated to address the public health issues related to the coronavirus pandemic. 9% of $1.9 trillion. That would be like running an errand for somebody. They give you a $50 bill. Hey, can you go pick up some milk, some eggs, and a handful of things? And they come back and you don't give them any change. You bring them their stuff and they're like, well, what happened? Well, I had to make sure that I needed to get my whiskey. I had to get a loaf of bread. I also had to get some cereal and some ice cream. So here's 46 cents. But instead, what will normal people think? Oh, the government did so well by us. They made sure that $1.9 trillion was set aside so we can just sit at home and coom and never accomplish anything anymore. I'm so glad the big daddy government can take care of us. Not quite in those terms, but that's the underlying sentiment, as it were. And I go so hard on these people because they're despicable at every level, okay? I mean, could you imagine wasting $1.9 trillion and then once everything gets passed, you need to stand up and clap for yourselves because you do such a great job because you just live off the government tit and never really accomplish anything with your life? Like Bernie Sanders' creepy face is just peeking out right here, and that dude has been on the public dole for 40 some odd years at this point. Chuck Schumer's been in the Senate for 20 as well, I do believe. You just need to look down the list, and all of these career politicians are despicable. I don't care what side of the aisle they're on. Get in, do your job, serve the public, get on with your life. I don't need you hanging around forever, making friends, hanging out on subcommittees, and not doing a fucking thing. There's a term limit for the president. There's a term limit for a vast majority of the states around the country. Why aren't there term limits for senators and House members at the federal level? Okay, places like South Dakota and Texas, I know this for sure, they pay their state level representatives a part-timer's wage because they go in, they pass the bills that they need to, and then they get the fuck on with their life. Imagine that. Imagine how much Congress could get done if they were paid a fraction, if they were paid enough to, I don't know, like do it like a reverse school plan. Okay, follow me for a second. Okay, throughout the entire year, senators, House members go on, live amongst the people that they're supposedly representing. They make the connections with the people in their neighborhoods, in their communities, and then for 2 months, even if it's in the winter, who gives a shit? If it's right before Christmas, you go in, you pass the stuff that you need to, you get the fuck out. Here's your check for $20,000 or $30,000 to cover your fucking expenditures. Terrific, wonderful. If you stop dragging this out over the entire year, you meet. Some of the people don't even bother showing up most of the time, and you just vote or you just dick around and never accomplish anything. What is the goddamn point? It's like all of these different hearings that get held, and that's the biggest complaint against term limits. At least the only one that pretends to hold any kind of water. Oh, what about the subcommittees? Okay, they do such good work. They never accomplish anything, okay? We covered the first day of the subcommittee hearings on Robinhood and GameStop, that entire situation. I looked into the one in the Capitol Hill riots, and they didn't accomplish anything. They didn't subpoena the right people. They didn't have the right people there. They didn't have any of the testimony. They didn't ask the proper questions. It's just a big make-work project. What you need to do, term limits, shrink the time that people are actually in session, and then stuff might actually get done. Radical thought, I know. Instead of defund the police, how about you defund Congress? But nah, definitely not likely under this administration. Because, yeah, Democrats celebrate passage of $1.9 trillion coronavirus bill. This is just the start of what Congress can do. Waste taxpayer money at a huge scale. Democrat senators celebrated in the upper chamber's passage of the $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief measure on Saturday, framing it as just the start of what Congress can do moving forward. The Senate passed, yes, after hours and hours and hours of delegation, 50-49, because Dan Sullivan from Alaska punched out. Chief Wampum celebrated the measure's passage as historic. So excited she built a bonfire and everybody's going to pass the scope around in a circle. Remember, I'm a quarter native. I can make that joke. This is just the start of what Congress can do for working families. We must raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I'm going to have to press X the doubt on that one. You don't have any support for that. We need to invest in infrastructure. Just allow private companies to do it. They can do it 25 times better than what the government can do. K-12 education, stay off the kids, you creeps. And a clean energy economy. Not the way that you want to do clean energy. You guys have a terrible idea. Just watch it fail in real time. All we need to do is go back a couple of weeks, take a look at Texas. It was so bad, even their federal senators were trying to leave the country. Come on, guys, what are you trying to do out there? But this continues to just be a Democratic circle jerk. Oh, you got the likes of Sherrod Brown from Ohio, who's definitely not going to win his re-election attempt. You got independent Bernie Sanders, the most significant piece of legislation to benefit working families in the modern history of the country. Okay? Yeah, but only 9% is for actual people. Oh, shut up. We'll just get the billionaires to pay for everything. I like to pass bills that are worth trillions of dollars. You got Chairman Mark chiming in, Tammy Baldwin, Spartacus, Dick Durbin, old Spatula Feet, Tammy Duckworth. I hate them all. Now, I'll just leave that up in the middle of the screen because Kevin McCarthy did something good by pointing out that, yes, 91% of this is absolute fluff that's just going to go to benefit democratic causes, ideas, and many other desolate countries throughout the world. But, hey, you guys take your $171 billion and dole it out amongst yourselves and tell all your blue donkey friends that you think that you did something good by passing that and campaign on that in 2, 4, or 6 years. So yeah, if you meet those thresholds, congratulations, you're going to be getting some checks or some unemployment aid. And depending on how successful the fear merchants are over the summer, you might be seeing another bill like this, and eventually somebody's going to have to start asking, who the fuck is going to be paying for this stuff? Because you can't start spending $1.9 trillion and then all of a sudden you start seeing vans pop out in front of your house that have a Clinton logo on the side of the van, and then one of their disappearing agents come in and ask you if you're with her or not. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of this. This could have been totally avoided if the fearmongers weren't still in charge. All we got to do is just hold those people accountable in 2, 4, like I said before, 6 years. Don't forget, because this is just the tip of the iceberg, it is early in a lot of these people's terms, and you gotta hold them accountable where you can, peacefully and patriotically. With that said, I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.